Welcome to Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Joyous conversations about what the afterlife evidence and modern science combine to tell us is true about our one reality. You have nothing to fear. You are eternal and you are perfectly loved. Knowing the truth changes everything. Now, here's Roberta.
Welcome to Seek Reality. I'm Roberta Grimes, and I'm so happy you're with us today. Oh, my wonderful friends, our guests today are Seek Reality special favorites. Carol and Mikey Morgan are with us today for the 27th time, and this is a special honor for us. Theirs is a truly amazing story. Mikey Morgan is a sixth level being who last had lived on Earth in the 1600s, so he was already a very, very advanced being and vibrating almost at the Godhead level. But he was alarmed at the way things were going on Earth, and he wanted so much to help us spiritually that he, in 1987, decided that he had to help us somehow. And what he did was something which, this is unthinkable to people at his level. He entered a new lifetime on Earth. And he ended that lifetime in 2007, 20 years later, so he could teach us in the voice of a modern American 20-year-old. This is unthinkable. I can't even give you what an analogy would be like to us. But this is hard duty for somebody at his spiritual level. But he just wanted to help us so badly. Now Mikey answers our questions about the afterlife, the greater reality, all the things we could not possibly find out otherwise. And he answers those questions from the sixth level of the afterlife, which is the level which is just below the source level. It's almost like having God talk to us directly. And he answers those questions through his mother of this most recent Earth lifetime, which, as I say, just ended just very recently. And that mother is Carol Morgan, and she swears to us she never would have agreed to this, but she did. So today our guests once again are Carol and Mikey Morgan, and they're with us for the 27th time. Now, I first met Carol only a few years after she had lost Mikey in an auto accident. Not an accident, of course. This was a planned exit, his last planned exit for this lifetime. Carol knew nothing about the afterlife. I've tested Mikey's knowledge, however, very extensively, so I can vouch for the fact that he is precisely what he tells us he is. He is this very advanced being. And I have spent more than 50 years researching the afterlife and the greater reality, and Mikey knows a great deal more about all of this than I do. Whenever I was testing him, I think he thought this was funny. He would answer my questions precisely, patiently, and accurately, and then he would generally tell me something more, a little bit more. And it was always right on, I was sure accurate, but it was something new that I didn't know about. And I know he never, ever, ever made a mistake. Now, I'm a skeptic by nature. It took me a long time to believe that he was the real deal. But he has finally proven himself to me. It took him 2, 3, 4 years. I'm a skeptic. But I believe now without reservation, I can vouch for Mikey Morgan 100,000%. Mikey communicates with us now from very near the Godhead, and his answers are always perfect. I have not heard his answers to any of the questions that we'll be asking him today. And this is his way of giving us a wonderful service for the whole world. Oh, Mikey and Carol, I am so glad. This is always such a treat for me whenever you come. It's wonderful to have you back with us today.
Good morning, Roberta. Yes, here we are. We're from Wisconsin, and it's a nice cool day today. It's only in the 60s right now, and it's been really warm and hot prior to this. So it's a nice little break in the action for us here.
We never get those breaks in Austin, but it's only, I don't know, it's only in the 90s here. That's not bad. Oh, Lord, it's so good to have you back. This is always such a treat for me.
Well, it's good to be back. This is always kind of a fun thing for me. So,
And a lot of these questions, we got a long series of them from someone who has a wonderful imagination. I have to thank this person. I have no idea who it is, but we're coming sort of toward the end of the questions that this person asked. And I'll be sorry to see them go because they're very creative. Now, the next question we have today, the first question for Mikey, and let's just explain again how we do this. You have all these questions, and so do I. And you ask the questions ahead of time of Mikey, and tell us how you do that.
so I always use my pendulum. I have a pendulum that I use with a letter disc. I know I've showed this before. This is kind of what I use. Um, I call for him. I go through my ritual that I do for asking for God's protection and everything, and I call for him and I ask him questions that only he knows the answer to first to always confirm it's him. And I have done this long enough now where I do hear him telepathically as I do this, but I ask him the questions and I listen and hear the answers as well as how the pendulum moves to the different letters. I mean, we have an abbreviated version kind of how we do it now, but I do always confirm for the accuracy of it. But I can hear him when I do this, and he tries to answer them in ways that I can understand because I have never done any research or anything. Really, my only background with heaven was through the Catholic Church when I was growing up. And so he keeps it simple for me, which is very nice.
Yeah, the
So,
Catholic Church wouldn't give you much of a background on what actually goes on.
no, but that's all I had. I mean,
Yeah,
that's all I
well, it
had.
was
So,
smart of you to do no research. You only know, what you knew then, which is good, and also what you've heard Mikey tell us.
right.
Um,
I
but
continue to not, I don't read anything. I don't read books or any of that on things because I don't want what I hear to be biased or, you know what I mean, to have any
yes, yeah.
influence on what I'm hearing when I do work with him. So trying to keep it straight, narrow, strictly from Mikey.
So the first question we have to ask Mikey today is, do souls encompass multiple higher selves? So if a soul comes to Earth, is that multiple higher selves or just one?
Mikey tells me we have one higher self. So Mikey describes, and I know I've talked about this before, Mikey describes our higher self as our suitcase of knowledge that we require over all our experiences that we have in all the different dimensions of where a soul can travel. And so when we come here and we work on our spiritual growth and our experiences, when we return back to the afterlife or heaven, we merge again with our higher self, with all this knowledge that we have. And so he does describe it as our suitcase that we kind of leave behind in the afterlife while we travel and do our thing until we return. So that's how he describes it. So it really is only one higher self. It is not multiple ones that we have each time we come.
There's a great description of this in Mikey's book. Mikey wrote a book, and I recommend that book. I think it's the best book, for example, giving a description of what it's like to die here and then return to the afterlife. He talks about his own experience in doing that. And Mikey wrote this book with the patient help of his mother and his mother's pendulum. It took them a while to do it, but it is Mikey word for word. I helped them edit the book, but that's it. It's called Flying High in Spirit, a young snowboarder's account of his ride through heaven. Mikey learned to snowboard when he was here. He died at 20 here. That was his last of two possible exit points. I think the first one was at age 12, but he was having too much fun here. He was going to stay till the last possible one. He died in an auto accident that, which was not an accident, that was a planned exit point. There were other kids in the car. They were not injured at all, but Mikey was cast from the car. Mikey's body was, and he watched the accident happen from above, and then he was met with his by his spirit guide who took him directly to the afterlife, and he talks about what it was like to merge with his higher self. And suddenly he knew so much more. Wow, it was really an eye-opening experience to merge with his higher self. Great description of how that happens right after our physical body dies. Pretty quickly it happens, and he talks about it. I mean, I would read his book just for that experience alone and the whole experience of returning to the afterlife. Again, Mikey Morgan is the author of the book. It's quite a great book. I'll give you that. You don't have to drive off the road. We'll put his book in the description of these materials that go with this podcast description. But anyway, let's go forward and we'll talk about it at the end as well of this podcast. But second question, are each of our incarnations part of the same higher self or a different one?
The same. So that's kind of tied in with the last question that they just asked us. So
as we come back, and many of us have had a lot of incarnations, it's always the same higher self that has planned that new incarnation and come back to life.
That is correct. Yeah. But he always describes that our higher self is basically our suitcase of knowledge that we leave behind when we come here.
And then we just pick it right up again. Okay.
And then we pick it right when we go back, we pick it right up again.
Okay. At what point, this is a good one, at what point does the spirit leave the body when the body is subjected to any of the innumerable horrible ways that living beings can die and have died since life began?
Mikey tells me he shot out of his body right before impact of that vehicle. So he left his body before he felt anything. And Mikey told me that, it's kind of a choice of how quickly you exit your body. It's the soul's choice of how quickly you leave. But when you hear about some of these horrible things that happen to people, and I know many loved ones left behind worry about how their loved one must have suffered, prior to them totally passing or the body dying. But Mikey says often the soul is already out. The soul will exit that body. So when people worry about that piece, I mean, it's not necessarily the case, is what he tells me. He says most often the soul will leave. It'll exit before you're just, because when you hear some of the stuff, it's just awful, So that's what Mikey tells me that. And with him, in his situation, he absolutely exited it. He shot out of his body right before impact. So he said he did not feel anything and no pain, and then he was above the accident and he could see it.
I would just confirm that from many, many, many accounts of people who have died horribly. When they have communicated with their loved ones, they always say they were out of their body, always. People who have burned to death, people who have been tortured to death, people who have died in great pain, the body was screaming. They say, I saw it all from above. I didn't feel any of the pain at all that body felt. And I think that is tremendously reassuring to all of us. And I have asked my spirit guide about this as well. And he tells me universally, if that body is dying, is going to die eventually of whatever's going on, the spirit is always out of the body long before the death. As soon as the death is certain, the body is out of the body, is out of the body. Rather, the spirit is out of the body. As soon as death is certain, the spirit's out of the body. So don't worry about that. Anyone who has had a loved one suffer and they've seen the suffering or are aware of the suffering, don't worry. That person was long since out of the body. And I love that. that I love that. And so, above all, we have a merciful, merciful God. God does not allow us to suffer for nothing.
The other thing too, Roberta, which is probably of note here with this is, you know, our soul can travel out of the body, and that happens because of the silver cord,
Right.
which is the attachment, the energy attachment to the body. Mikey always tells me corporal death. I think that's the proper word I'm trying to think of. The death
I love that he can talk fancy. Good.
of the death of the
Death of the body. Yes.
of the body actually occurs when that cord severs.
Yes. That's what it
And
is.
so when that body, the soul, it's out, it's not feeling anything, but he says once the cord severs, then that's it. The body dies and that soul cannot return to that body.
Right. That's why we know if someone tells you that they had a near-death experience and then they came back and they're telling you about it, they didn't die and come back to life. They had just had a near-death experience, but it was only near death. They never died. They didn't die and come back to life. That cannot happen.
Right. Once the silver cord has to sever for actual death of the body to occur.
That's exactly right. It's a very clean distinction. True enough, Mikey knows everything. I love that.
Well, I mean, you know,
And he
I mean, I
would.
just this is all
at
this
his
is what I
level,
hear. This
yeah,
is what I
at his
hear.
level,
So
he would know all this stuff. It's really remarkable. Okay, are there no accidents, Mikey?
well, I asked Mikey this question, and this is, he said that once he says often they're not an accident, but he says I will never say that nothing is ever an accident, and this is why. So I'm going to use an example that he gave me. So let's say you're driving down the freeway and the person coming at you makes the free will choice that, you know what, I'm going to cross this lane. And I mean, I'm going to cross this lane and I'm going to hit this car. Okay. Intentionally changing course to intentionally hit the other car coming. Now, he said he would not define, and let's say both people were killed in that accident, he would say, or that incident, he would say that for the person for sure who was hit, he said that could be considered an accident as far as it may not have been a true planned exit point for that person. So he says he would never say that all accidents were planned or, you know what I mean, previously planned. But he'll never say all, he said, but that would be an example of one where someone else intentionally free will choiced it to do what they did versus it being a mistake in driving skill or whatever. So that's what he tells me on that. So he would never say
Again,
all.
Mikey's always right. That's an absolutely true statement. A murder is very often, you might think of it as a kind of accident. People are sometimes murdered at not a true exit point in their lifetime because it was a free will choice of someone else to murder that person. Absolutely right. You're right, Mikey. Dead on. Pardon the expression. Dead on accurate. Yeah. But most apparent accidents that look like accidents really are not accidents, especially if there's no other person involved.
Right? They that can absolutely be a planned exit point. Mikey told me he had three, apparently, three exit points, and he took the last one.
I knew he took the last one. I thought there
He
were
took
only
the
two.
last one.
There's one at 12, I know.
I don't know if it was. I know. Well, when he was really young, he got really sick. Of course, he was really young. He was probably 9 months old. But
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know about that one. Yeah.
yeah, but there was another. I mean, and there was one where I'd have to ask him again on that. But
He
anyway,
had
he
told me
had
12.
three. He
Now,
had three.
or I think it even appears in the book.
I don't know if that's discussed in the how many. I don't know if I can't remember if that's in the book or not. I don't know that that is. He might say that that was his last exit point in the book, but I don't
No,
know if he talked
no,
about the
yeah,
other
I
ones.
thought that was his first.
When he passed, it was his last.
Yes, that was his last 20. I
Yes.
remember clearly.
Hmm.
To like
Yeah.
drag him kicking and screaming out of this lifetime. He was just having so much fun.
He was having
That
fun.
I
He said he
remember
was having a
very
lot of
well.
fun here.
Yeah. But he had
You
to
know,
die young because he needed to have you have a whole long lifetime when you were able to do this for him and be his mouthpiece. But I think that's so fun. So much fun. And he's answered hundreds, thousands of questions by now.
I
So
would say so
many
because on Afterlife forums, I mean, we answered
thousands right
just
there. Yeah.
tons of questions. I mean,
And they're all archived. All these questions that he's answered are archived too. They're all on all of the programs that we have put together are all saved and archived. So time to write another book, Mikey. We're gonna have to get going on that. That's right. He'll start nagging you. Pretty soon it'll be time to do another book. But we don't have to talk about that today. But anyway, how often do we die as a result of reaching a planned exit point versus just being an accident? I think I know
most
the answer to this, but
yeah,
I'd love to hear
most
what he
often, I
said.
mean, it's a planned exit point. I mean,
Usually they are
again,
planned exit points.
usually they are planned exit points, yes. And so, you know, and I mean, when you think of it as an accident, yeah, but yeah, it can very much so be a planned exit point. More than often it is.
And it isn't that people choose them consciously, but very often people unconsciously know that their higher consciousness has chosen the next exit point. And usually they choose it because there isn't much more to be learned. Now, when are these exit points likely to be? There's often one in young adulthood, not before that, but sometimes there is one before that, one in middle age and one in old age. That's when they usually are, but not always. Sometimes, as with Mikey, they're much younger. Um, Sometimes they get changed in the course of your life. I know they have been in my case. My spirit guide wants me to stay longer, and kicking and screaming, I have agreed. I, I guess I wanted to go home sooner. He's let me know that. But I mean, when you know how much better it is there, you don't necessarily want to extend your time here. But I have more teaching to do, so I'm going to stay longer, I guess. But usually we leave at a planned exit point, and usually or very often, especially with older people, those at the celebration of a person's life will tell stories. They'll say, it's funny. I hadn't heard from him in years, or I hadn't seen her in years, and then I got a phone call. Golly, that was no more than a month ago. Or that, then I got invited to, she just had this big cookout last summer, and everybody she'd ever known got invited. People do wrapping up things. Suddenly, the wife says, he wanted us all to do our estate plans. That was something he never talked about before. Or she suddenly wanted to start giving away things. That she never did that before. People start wrapping their lives up in funny ways.
Well,
They never do consciously.
even with Mikey, what was it, 2 months or so before his accident, when he was home, he had a sunburnt nose. I know I've told this story before, and I said, "Oh, Mikey, you got to
Tell it
watch
again.
that. You could get melanoma, and you got to be careful. You got to be using sunblock." And he said to me, "Mom, something else is going to get me long before melanoma ever does." And he
Yeah,
said that to me twice. And I just thought that was so odd out of a 20-year-old that he
yeah,
would say that. But that is an example, I believe, of
yep,
he subconsciously knew something was coming. And after when I found out about the accident, that was the first thing that popped into my head was that he made that comment when he was home just 2 months ago. So that was
yeah, yeah.
interesting to me.
Yeah, fascinating. No, it's true. It's very true. That kind of thing happens all the time. So, yeah, I mean, but just the fact that your spouse said, "Hey, we should make our wills," that doesn't necessarily mean you should think, "Oh," doesn't necessarily mean that. But it is the kind of thing that people do talk about at these celebrations of lives. It's not negative because nobody ever, ever, ever dies. And there is no hell. This is all one continuous lifetime over many earth lives. So we don't need to worry about these things. It's wonderful to know someone like Mikey who can answer these questions and who wants to answer these questions, even more importantly, because a lot of people who live in the afterlife really, this is just like a bad day in school for them. And they're so glad they graduated and they don't have to think about it anymore, and they don't. So what Mikey is doing for us now is such a great gift. And I am so grateful, Mikey, to you, and so many people are, that you're willing to give us this gift. Thank you. Thank you so much for this. Oh, and here's another good one. Um, when many people, and many people have asked me this question actually, when many people die in the same accident, or like 9/11, or even any plane crash, when many people die in the same accident, is it likely that at least many of them planned that same accident before they incarnated as one of their exit points?
Mikey tells me yes, that is a planned exit point for many of those people, for sure. In fact, the 9/11, I mean, boy, think of the impact that had.
Wow, yes.
So, you know, um, with some of these natural disasters and some of these things, especially natural disasters, Mikey calls them energy events. They're energy events that occur because what happens when souls do that and then they exit at that point, but it's this energy event that occurs, is think of how it brings out the best in people. It brings out people are helping people they don't know. They're showing love and kindness. They're
Yes.
helping with food and water. And he says it's actually a huge spiritual moment of getting it. He says, sometimes unfortunately people you have to learn the hard way, as far as you have to have a tragedy to really understand what's important in life, because you get so tied up in your everyday activities. But he said these energy events, these disasters that happen, these natural disasters, really can just bring out beautiful, loving, caring ways of people that normally does not
Oh,
occur.
absolutely true. These are not, I live in Texas. We just had this huge overflow of one of our big rivers through the hill country. 100-year, maybe 150, 200-year climactic disaster. Many people died. And still was an opportunity for many people to show fantastic heroism. Sometimes they died in the midst of their heroism. And, there's been a lot of praying, a lot of energy expended in praying. And sometimes that praying saved lives. And millions and millions of dollars of charity given. Again, more extraordinary energy expended to the good.
Right. It brings out the best in so many
Brings out the
people.
best in so many, many people.
Mm-hmm. So as sad and traumatic as all this is, I mean, there is, that part of it. That whole deal with all those children and everything. I mean, my heart just aches for those parents, because I know how hard it is. The loss of a child in the beginning, especially, is just, there's no worse pain. that I will tell you. I mean, it's a brutal
Yeah.
journey. So, my heart goes out to all of those families. It's just so very difficult. So,
But there's a lot of spiritual growth for so many people who even hear about those tragedies, who are no longer
very
associated
much.
with those tragedies. And there's so much growth, and there's so much love that comes forth from so many people and grows in so many people as a result of those tragedies.
Right. It truly does bring out the best in so many people. And it can be from people you don't even expect. I mean, I remember that with us. I mean, some of the people that were just unbelievable support it'd be the ones you hardly suspected, I mean, so it's a really, it ends up being a beautiful, spiritual, loving thing that unfolds with it, but it's just so traumatic on all levels too. It's just but yes, I mean, that exit point though, with when it's like that is, some of that's planned for sure. So,
But those planes that hit the Twin Towers had far fewer people as passengers on them than they usually would have. And there were many stories about people who just missed getting on those planes.
right. They weren't supposed to be on those planes.
Right.
I mean, there's a reason when something happens, something falters when you don't get on something,
Right.
and then a big tragedy occurs. Because it's not one of your exit points.
Right. And people who didn't make it to work that day for some strange, mysterious reason, that kind of thing. There are a lot of stories like that about those towers.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's the stories. It's not perfect. There were some people who were not. We have to treat it as a pure accident that they died that day.
Right. It's
But
not
no,
everybody that it's a planned exit on that situation
it
there.
wasn't always a planned exit. But for many people, because it wasn't their exit, they somehow didn't get on that plane, or they didn't quite make it to work. Their guides made sure that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. Yes.
And that's we all have guides. Everyone has a primary spirit guide who's been with them through life, and our guides are taking care to make sure that we hit our marks. And if it's not our mark, we miss that mark. If it's not our time to go and return home. Okay, this is an interesting one for me. Is it unlikely, perhaps impossible, for all souls to eventually reach the Godhead level together? I would say
So,
at all.
well, I didn't, I was, I read this question to Mikey, and it's like, I'm trying to figure out, what do they mean that we're all getting there at the same time or whatever? But anyway, what he tells me is, we're all evolving at different rates as far as our soul progression and that type of thing. So,
Right.
for us to all reach at the same exact time, that is not likely. If I'm, and again, when I read this question, it's like, I don't know. I mean, you can interpret that question a couple different ways, I think.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're all evolving at a different rate. And Mikey says we need to remember that we can't even imagine how many souls there are.
Yeah.
Because even all the people here, there's still a bunch of souls every place else,
Yeah.
It's beyond what we can comprehend. He says it's just, it's probably not likely. Well, it's not all of us at the same time, for sure not, he's saying. But, because it's just constantly evolving and changing, it's, we're all at a different
pace, so we certainly won't all get there together. I mean,
we're not all going to get there together at the same time. No.
And there are people even now who are electing merger with the Godhead. They have reached level 6. They're high overachievers. They're not like Mikey, who cares so much about, I mean, his doing this work for the earth, I'm sure, is earning him huge merit. He could very soon probably have earned enough merit, enough soul growth that he could merge with the Godhead if he chose, probably before very long. But he probably doesn't choose to do that. I know of other cases where those who would choose to merge could merge. I mean, long ago, someone we all know and love beyond all rationality, Jesus, merged with the Godhead initially, and then once he came to earth and taught us, he thought it was in everyone's best interest for him not to truly merge with God again when he went again home, and he stays at the lowest level of the accessible afterlife just so he can teach us all from there. And that's true. He does not, although he is vibrating even above the Godhead level at this point, he does not merge because he can teach us forever. And that is the greatest merit I could possibly imagine anyone earning. And so he's just earning it, but he doesn't spend it, if you know what I mean. I mean, he just grows and grows and grows. And that's another thing that Mikey is perhaps on the road to doing because he loves us that much. I don't think we possibly can appreciate hearing from him as he patiently teaches us that he is on the road to just eternal growth by doing this. This is a beautiful thing your son is doing. I don't think you really understand just how beautiful this is and how much merit he is gaining in eternity just by being this teacher that he is.
It's, I don't understand. I don't understand. I mean, a lot of this stuff is just so over my head.
Over all our heads, really. But I know enough about it to know just how extraordinary this is.
And I always say, I don't know. I'm just relaying the message. I'm just the messenger in this stuff. So, I have this has just been, it's just been hard for me. It's been kind of miraculous for me. Even the whole communication thing. I remember when Sally Baldwin, I was just telling a friend of mine this yesterday, when Sally Baldwin told me, you're going to be able to communicate with him. I promise you by the time you leave this retreat. And I told her she was crazy.
Yeah.
I said, you're out of your mind. I said, there's no way. She says, oh no. She said, your son is of a high energy. She told me. So she told me that also. And she said, you will have the ability. And I told her she was crazy. And when I left, I could communicate. So, I was just like, this is too bizarre. This is too bizarre. it actually scared me at first because when I went home, I thought, who's going to believe this? I showed very few friends at first and family because it's like, I mean, what do you, I mean,
Yeah.
who believe, you know what I mean? Especially with my upbringing, I didn't know what to think, but I'll give a shout out to Sister Joan. Thanks, Sister Joan, for the Catholic nun who, oh, she helped me so much. She's like, oh my gosh, no, this is the real deal, she said. She
No, it
said,
is the
you
real
got,
deal. It's the real deal.
yeah,
And your son is gaining tremendous eternal merit just by loving the world as much as he loves the world to teach in this way. And yes, he is quite real. And it's quite beautiful beyond anything I have ever seen from someone who just loves us all this much. We're very, very grateful to Mikey and grateful to you for doing this. But we have way gone past the end of our time. I wanted to get to this question. The first question next time is about Lucifer, and I don't want to start. I don't want to end with a question about Lucifer, but we'll start with that one next time.
right. And I have to say that question, and all the ones that kind of follow about angels and stuff, that'll be a good discussion for sure.
Okay, well, that's a little preview of coming attractions, everybody. But we're going to stop here. I just want to give a little plug again for Mikey's book, which is called Flying High in Spirit, a young snowboarder's account of his ride through heaven. And we'll talk more about his snowboarding. He says he talks in detail about his snowboarding there, which is he can snowboard in any clothes because it's impossible for those bodies we have then ever to get hurt, and he can now snowboard better than Shaun White. I don't know who that guy is, but apparently
Oh,
he's
Shaun White was the big Olympic snowboarder from the
okay. Well,
United
if he can
States.
snowboard better than Shaun White, he's doing a pretty good job of it. But everybody, all I have time to do is really tell you guys coming next week and then sign off because we've used up all our time. But you just stay put for a second, and I'll just tell everybody about next week. But please, everybody, understand you are a powerful, eternal being. You never began, you never will end. If you can hear my voice now, you are eternal by definition. And when you get that, when you really understand it, you are going to be joyous beyond all rationality. Next week, our guest will be Ray Catania. He'll be here with us for the fourth time. He's always a lot of fun. Ray is into all kinds of things. He's an author, a metaphysical teacher, a theorist, a life coach. He's the visionary behind limitless publications, limitless coaching, scientific spirituality for the modern human. He has a sense of humor too. His two very good books are The Atheist and The Afterlife. That's a shock, by the way. And You Are Still Alive, Now Act Like It. Ray says it's his insights that make him a sought-after practitioner, but it really is just the fact he's spookily psychic. So his publicist calls him a sought-after practitioner in scientific spiritualism and in the practical applications of metaphysics. I just think he's a lot of fun. He's had a near-death experience, of course, hasn't everyone? And he's an ordained minister with master certifications in life coaching, Reiki, and meditation. He's always been a lot of fun when we've had him here, so please be sure to join us next week. And this week, our guests have been our very dear and cherished friends, Carol and Mikey Morgan, for the 27th time. And we have them back usually 3 or 4 times a year. I have tested Mikey Morgan, just so you know, and I am a big skeptic. I didn't believe for a minute that this could be a real thing, but it is a real thing. He is the real deal. I have never, in hundreds and hundreds of questions, heard him get a single thing wrong. It's beyond amazing. If you have a question you'd like to ask Mikey, you can just email it to me at info@robertagrimes.com. That's info@robertagrimes.com, or just go to the block. There's a place, if you have a question or you want to contact Roberta, ask the question. It'll be added to Mikey's list. And we have no more time for anything else. So once again, this has been Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Please enjoy, make the most of this coming week in our one reality, which is all, by the way, consciousness. There is nothing else. Always know that you are a powerful, eternal being by definition, and most of all in this entire universe, you in particular are infinitely, eternally, perfectly, and forever loved.
You've been listening to Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Roberta blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Join us every week as we explore what the afterlife evidence and modern science combine to tell us is true about the one reality we all share. Knowing the truth changes everything.